Ukrainian army has released video footage showing the downing of a Russian Mi-8 military helicopter worth millions of dollars. The footage shared in Telegram channel of Ukraine's unmanned systems forces captures the moment of the strike on the Mi-8 helicopter followed by explosion. The operation to take down the expensive Russian military helicopter was carried out by the 59th Brigade of Ukraine's unnamed system forces. The commander of the unmanned systems forces, Robert Magyar Brovdi, announced the downing of the helicopter on September 29. The cost of a Mi-8 helicopter varies greatly depending on the modification, but on average ranges from several million to tens of millions of US dollars for used and new models. Being a Russian-built utility helicopter, Mi-8 is often found operating in hostile environments and remote destinations. It can carry up to 4 tons of cargo either in its large rear-loading cargo hold, or as a slung load.
Ukraine plans to establish space forces by the end of this year, a new branch within the defense forces that won't fight Star Wars but will play a critical role on the front. According to the Cabinet of Ministers Programme of Activities submitted to the Verkhovna Rada on September the 23rd, the formation of the space forces must be completed by December the 31st. This step involves updating the structure of the defense forces, creating the legal and organizational framework for their operation, and achieving at least 60% operational readiness of an integrated air and missile defense system with cyber and space components. Earlier this spring, the Ministry of Defense launched the Space Policy Directorate, which coordinates infrastructure audits, the drafting of documentation, pilot projects, and international partnerships. The main goal of this body is to unite internal and external resources for the development of Ukraine's military space capabilities. The Space Forces are a specialized branch of the armed forces responsible for military operations in space, including intelligence, surveillance, communications, navigation, and the protection of space assets from threats. Today, they are not about weapons in orbit. They are about the resilience of critical infrastructure, strengthening early warning systems, and cooperating with cyber and air forces in joint operations based on high-quality satellite intelligence. Aviation expert and senior researcher at the State Aviation Museum, Valery Romanenko, told Espresso that to understand the logic behind creating Ukraine's space forces, one needs to recall the key requirements for intelligence, accuracy, reliability, completeness, and timeliness. Intelligence also varies: tactical, operational, strategic. We manage tactical and operational intelligence without space forces, but for strategic intelligence, we are preparing to strike at depth with new weapons. A missile will not fly by itself. You must populate its navigation system with information. That can only be done through space means, so we need accurate, reliable, complete and timely information about the strategic situation among the Russians, where their air defense systems are deployed, how their enterprises operate, which routes are relatively safe for our drones or missiles, which zones Russian fighters patrol. All that information must be collected, processed and analyzed by a single body and then issued to the units of structures that need it. That is likely what the new space forces will do, the expert said. Romanenko also explains that in the US, electro-optical and radio-technical intelligence is carried out by a single structure. 90% of information comes from some 250 reconnaissance satellites, whereas Ukraine currently has multiple sources of data. During the Trump administration, there were incidents when the Pentagon stopped sharing intelligence with Ukraine, so other countries stopped it. In addition, the US often downgrades the quality of shared imagery. they keep high-resolution data for themselves and provide lower-resolution versions to others. Right now, we receive such information from several countries, both from their armed forces and from commercial firms such as Maxar. And let us recall the Prytula satellite as well. Therefore, we need a single structure to process and analyze these streams of information and pass the data to the units that carry out strikes, Romanenko noted. Russian war correspondents have acknowledged the dire situation facing their troops in the Pokrovsk sector. They claim that Ukrainian forces have allegedly encircled the occupiers in 3 cauldrons, effectively cutting off their escape routes. The situation is catastrophic. The troops are almost completely surrounded, the losses are enormous, and the consequences will be felt for a long time, writes one of the Z-War correspondents. At the same time, Viktor Tregubov, spokesman for the Dnipro Joint Forces Group, told Ukrainian media that it was too early to talk about a full-fledged encirclement. He stated that there are several areas where Russian units are indeed under heavy pressure, but it remains to be seen whether they will be able to escape. The situation for the occupiers is complicated by the actions of Ukrainian drones, which are successfully tracking and destroying enemy supply columns. Attempts to transport reinforcements to the Pokrovsk area are resulting in losses for Russia, exacerbating the crisis for its troops. The situation is even more tense in the Dobropilya sector. According to military observer Denis Popovich, Ukrainian forces have formed 3 encirclements, which threaten to encircle units of the Russian 51st Army and former militants of the so-called DPR. If these forces are routed, the northern part of the semi-encirclement the Russians attempted to create around Pokrovsk and Mirnorad will completely collapse. At the same time, Ossinters emphasize that the enemy is attempting to redeploy Marines and airborne assault units to lift the siege. According to Dmitry Zmailo, executive director of the Center for Security and Cooperation, this is the largest redeployment of Russian forces since 2022. According to Russian military correspondents, Ukrainian drones are tracking reinforcements and convoys, destroying any supplies. The situation is catastrophic. The troops are almost surrounded. There are not enough people, the losses are huge, and the consequences will be felt for a long time, admits propagandist Podolyaka. Ukrainian Army Forces Commander-in-Chief Oleksandr Syrsky confirmed that individual groups of occupiers had managed to advance 12 to 20 kilometers. However, he said, Ukrainian forces had anticipated this scenario and trapped the enemy in a sort of pocket. Airborne assault force units from the north and south closed the line along the Kazeni-Torets River, depriving the Russians of any room to maneuver. Syrsky emphasized that Russia had thus effectively failed its spring-summer campaign. Moreover, Ukrainian counter-offensives forced the occupiers to abandon their plans to attack Novopavlivka, and the forces deployed there are now suffering heavy losses near Dobropilya. Recall, in the north Slobozianski and Kursk directions, Ukrainian troops successfully repelled several attacks, destroying enemy equipment. Russian forces also conducted aviation strikes and shelling from rocket systems. Ukrainian troops are effectively defending their territory along the entire front line, conducting counterattack and inflicting significant losses on the enemy. Despite enemy aggression, Ukrainian defenders continue to stand guard over their country, demonstrating determination in defending their territories.